right. All right, our participants and attendees are starting to jump on. Have a on the call, and we are live on Facebook. Good evening, everyone. My name is Matthew Pigatt with the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome you to our webinar today, understanding how to secure the bag during COVID-19. This is part of actually a three-part series that we've been doing since COVID-19 has hit our community. And we want to make sure that our businesses and business owners and people in South Florida know what are the resources that are available to them and be here to take advantage of that. So we're going to get started in a few more moments. We're waiting for one of our panelists, and she's just jumped in to join us, but we're going to give us just a few moments to get everybody to get on, and we will start in a moment. So thank you very much for joining us today. At this time, you can start to go on and share this. If you are looking at this on Facebook or you're joining us through Zoom, please go on Facebook and share this. Go to the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce and either start a watch party or, oh, there we go, or just share it. Because we need to get this information out to as many people as possible. So please share and join us. All right, so I got my watch party started.
I'm trying to get mine started. I'm a little technically challenged, but I'm getting there.
All right, Mr. President Knowles. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, there's the share button. Okay, there we go.
All right. Right. So now that we are on and Facebook Live, we got our watch party. If you know some business owners, please tag them, share this. This is the information that our business owners desperately need right now. So please join in and make sure that you're here and a part for us. So with that, I would like to just do some ground rules for those that are on Facebook. You can actually click the link to join us through Zoom. So that you can engage our presenters, engage us with any questions that you have. For those that are on Zoom, you'll put your questions in the Q&A box that's down at the middle of your screen. If you have questions, you can put them in there. There is a chat function, but we will encourage everyone to put your questions in the chat at any point in time that they come to you. Put it in the chat so that we can make sure that our presenter is able to see them and answer them live. So with that, I want to introduce our president, Mr. Eric Knowles, to welcome us today and introduce our presenter.
Well, Matthew, once again, thank you for keeping our members engaged, our community engaged not only during this COVID-19 pandemic as we try to navigate, as say, the new normal, but I'm very excited about bringing Miss Althea Harris back. It's been like about a month, I guess, a little over a month or so that we first engaged Althea when the first round of PPP was coming out, and the EIDL, and trying to remember all those acronyms, I guess, and keeping them separated and dealing with the emergency money from the state. So since then, there's been a second round of money. We know the challenges that took place the first round. A lot of the large corporations that had their accounting firms in place and their lawyers in place, they had all their ducks in a row, so they just pushed the button and they scooped up all the money. We saw that a lot of them gave money back. We saw that banks were actually overloaded when it first came out, and they weren't able to take in all the applications. Some of our larger institutions, and then they opened up after a couple of days. But then again, a lot of our businesses that we work hard and advocate for every day were not even close to being able to participate in the financial support that the federal government was given. Was it $3 trillion that was put out the first time around? And little or none of us in the Black community received any of those dollars. And so a second round happened. And here we are today, is this May 27th, and there's $98 billion still sitting there or somewhere in that vicinity, 98, I didn't say million, I said $98 billion still sitting at the federal government for PPP loans. So I'm excited. I'm proud to have her as a friend. We've been knowing one another for quite a while, and she's been at the forefront working with the SBA, providing information, providing guidance for small businesses for quite a while now. And she was very instrumental in helping us at least get directed in which way to go. And the one thing that she said, there were a lot of questions, a lot of concerns whether people applied. And one thing she said, well, don't lock yourself out without applying. Go ahead and apply. Yeah. And so I know Althea, because of that, and I'm still introducing you. I know because of that, we told several of our members who were reluctant in applying, and they applied, and they received both the EIDL and they received the PPP loan. So, and that's because of your encouragement, encouraging us as a chamber, and we, doing what we do, which is advocating and bringing information to our membership. So, without further ado, I want to bring Miss Althea Harris on, and so that and I'm going to let Matthew run with this since he's our technical assistant manager. I'm going to let him run with it, but I'm going to sit back and enjoy. I'll jump in when I have to or when you all allow me to, but I want to welcome those who are on the Zoom and also those who are on Facebook who are, taking in the information, some valuable information. So welcome again, Althea.
Thank you, friend. I really appreciate it. Man, you just made my heart sing to hear that your members have been recipients of this massive amount of federal money that has come down to assist some small businesses.
Yeah, and when you say that, Althea, I want to say this to people, and I say it every day. This is our money. These are taxes. This isn't some money that somebody was holding over there that wasn't ours. This is taxes that we've been paying for years. And, I just read something yesterday, and I think about the people who have worked for 30 or 40 years. They retire, and I don't mean to be morbid, but think about the people who worked for 30, 40 years, or however many years, served in the military for 20, 30 years, and unfortunately may pass away, don't have any family members, so never collected any of that, those taxes money, those Social Security dollars that they paid into, or any other taxes that they paid into. So again, this is our money.
Right. I mean, if you're a taxpayer, you should have no compunction about applying for this money. However, what we do know is that because of the, anecdotal information we receive and the comments from the public, that African Americans seem to be having some difficulty with accessing these federal dollars. Now, I don't know that that's actually true. I just was on a webinar to try and understand the loan forgiveness under the PPP program. And one of the documents that borrowers are being asked to submit for loan forgiveness that is completely optional is a demographic information, essentially survey. And I urge us to complete that so that we can actually get some bona fide numbers as to who's getting what under this PPP program, because we haven't collected demographic data. Normally we would, right? Under normal circumstances in the SBA guarantee program, we would know to whom we have made loans. But under PPP, there was no data collection as to the borrowers. So to the extent that there are listeners who, have received PPP loans, I urge you to please complete that so we can at least begin to approach some understanding of who got this money, whether you're a veteran or woman, your status as an African-American or Hispanic, whatever. Check the boxes and let us know, because that's going to be really important and actually is a congressional request of SBA. So we're going to need borrowers to comply with. It's optional, but we're hoping that people will complete it. So let's going back though. We've heard, generally speaking, from advocacy groups and the public alike that there's this belief that not enough minorities are being able to access the PPP program. And that might be why there's still so much money left in the PPP program. Because the great majority of people who should be recipients of these dollars have not actually applied. Okay, why? Well, we also know that very sophisticated business people have not been able to successfully complete the PPP application process as well. I loved what you said earlier, that those large businesses who made the investments and having CPAs and all their stuff is organized, they just push a button and they were able to apply for PPP. But we know that, what is the term, opportunity or luck favors the prepared. Now, I know for a fact, Eric, you have done, and I have sat with Matthew and talked about repeatedly over the years, the need for folks to be organized, prepared, having their advisors in place, and, not having all their stuff in a shoebox under the bed, right? And this is good advice, and we've been hollering this stuff because it matters. It makes the difference. This is when it makes the difference. Now, listen, okay, be that as it may, the PPP loan program is still available. There's still near $100 billion available in PPP funds. You have until June 30th. To apply. That's when the cutoff is. So you have a month now, folks, 5 more weeks to get yourselves together to apply for this money if you need it. If you are a sole proprietor and you are a breadwinner because of your business, apply for the PPP. You can pay yourself with PPP funds. And if you are an employer who has employees, this is the point of the Paycheck Protection Program, is so that your employees will have money in their pockets to meet the needs of themselves and their families.
And that's where a lot of people are, I guess, the rubber hits the road in terms of businesses. They're having the angst of or forgetting that what the intent of the PPP was. The intent of the PPP was to keep your employees paid, even though your business may not have been open. But
that's
it was
right.
To help the economy stay
keep
steady.
Moving. Yes,
exactly.
yes.
And so I think there's a big misnomer in that a lot of people are thinking the PPP is help keep my business open. No, not really. No. It was put in place to take care of your employees.
That's
now,
correct.
The federal government is realizing that with that intent, there's some hiccups.
You don't say. There's some enormous hiccups, right? And I don't want to sound critical, right? But I was on a webinar last night for a law professor at University of Miami. And, what came out of part of that conversation is, on the one hand, it's very easy for Congress to pass a law. The implementation is the hard part. So when you offer, 350 billion dollars, and you create, I heard someone say, Hope Bryant said on our regional call the other night that in essence, the PPP program created the 8th largest bank in America. And you create that overnight. What do you think is going to happen? You're going to get institutions like large banks who are going to try and facilitate as best they can, as quickly as they can. And so that's why you saw that money go right out the door to the almost easiest people to lend to, because they make 940 deposits and reporting. They have W-2 earners. They push buttons, payroll company, boom, it's right there.
Right.
The harder folks to lend to, the folks who are sole proprietors, who don't really organize their files in the same manner, obviously. 1099 contractor, S Corps, all these other more challenging business structures have a much heavier lift to get this money. And so the whole implementation was a challenge. When we talk about the CARES Act creating a whole new enhancement of our economic injury disaster loan program, right, that SBA has run for decades. When we talked about PPP initially, PPP 1 money got out the door in 2 weeks, and more lending was done in 2 weeks than had been done in 14 years. That's an incredible amount of lending, enormous speed with which money was going out on the street. So if you weren't prepared, yeah, that train passed you right by. Good news though, PPP2 passed, and we've put in place mechanisms to slow the train down, right, so that folks can get on board. Now, one of the things that we did was we made it possible for substantially more lending organizations to participate. The fintech companies like Intuit and PayPal. Some of those kinds of companies are the kinds of financial institutions that many smaller businesses use to manage their cash flow, right? And to get loans.
And
so
actually,
we implement them. Go ahead.
And actually, Lendistry was one of them that really stepped up for a lot of our members, or several, I should say several, because we're still trying to extrapolate who has received what and where they received it from.
Right.
But to your point, Lendistry was one of those companies, not a regular bank like Bank of America, et cetera, right, that stepped into that and filled that pocket to support our small businesses. And then another one, our local Black-owned bank was One United. Right. They weren't in the business of banking, doing business banking, but they became affiliated with the SBA, and they also stepped into the game. And so right, because of that, so I'll step back and let you finish.
Right, and then CDFIs, which is what I really want to talk about too, because the Black Business Investment Fund made a bunch of loans. Listen, the CDFIs, I wrote it down, did 95,000 loans for over $7 billion under PPP2. I know.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so my point is,
a lot of those are Black businesses.
Exactly. So, the CDFIs across the country, they're mission-based nonprofit lenders who say, no, we lend to LMI businesses. We lend to urban businesses. We lend to rural businesses. Whatever their mission is, they are hyper-focused on their mission targets. And so they were able to step in and meet the needs of small businesses in the pockets where we find them, right? Who couldn't get the time of day from their large financial institutions where they've parked their money in some cases.
That was the crazy thing, Bank United, not to call them out, but Bank United, if you didn't have a loan, if you put, I know someone told me, a good friend told me, they had a business partner that was putting $50,000 in Bank United every month for payroll, but they did not have a loan with Bank United, and because of that, they were not doing business with the PPP. And so,
That.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I hope that folks, will consider, their relationships going forward, right? Because what we saw is that small banks had really had the facility, as it turns out, to crank out loans under PPP2 better, faster than large institutions. That same webinar I was on last night with there was a gentleman banker from Jimmy Frett from City National. They cranked a bunch of loans, not only to customers not their own, but to nonprofits. And because they're a smaller bank, were able to put almost all of their employees on doing PPP. But when you look at a major financial institution like Wells Fargo, Chase, Bank of America, where many people were very disappointed that they couldn't get any traction with their bank, I remind them, listen, those banks have literally tens of millions of customers. So you've basically gone to them and you've said, I'm hoping to be 1 in 10 million.
True.
And those are not great odds. They're not great odds at all.
Yeah.
So we saw that, SBA implemented a lot of new things to, in an effort, as I said, to slow the train down so people can jump on board. And I'm really hoping, because you see, I feel like in some respects, the train has stopped altogether, where, we have so much money still available in PPP. So the trick is to get folks situated so that they can apply. So yes, I briefly saw that the chat lit up, and someone said, oh, great, I'm glad you clarified that we as sole proprietors can get PPP loans. Yes, sole proprietors, 1099 contractors, because if you're a business owner who hires 1099 contractors, you cannot get a PPP loan for them. They have to go and get their own.
Correct. And actually, there's a question on Facebook. Someone was asking about 1099 employees. So can you explain that to them again?
Sure. So the 1099 independent contractor is not a full-fledged employee of a given business. At least that's what the business owner is saying when they make them a 1099 contractor, right? And not a W-2 wage earner. So in essence, the 1099 contractor is like a vendor in some respects, right? Someone they've got to pay, but for whom they don't deduct taxes and the like. So the 1099 contractors can apply for PPP loans themselves, and should, if their livelihood is derived from, maybe working at this company or that company, but not as a wage-to earner. The sole proprietor, the person who does their 1040 and does a Schedule C, they have a small business, they should apply and can apply. So now, again, the trick is, how do you demonstrate your payroll when you don't actually run a payroll? So that's, I think, where folks are, sort of falling down. And one of the important sources of information you'll need is on Treasury's website, treasury.gov/cares. Under the borrower section, the second to last link is how to calculate your loan amount. And it lists it by business type. So, go through there, determine which one you are, and follow those instructions.
Can you repeat that one?
Yeah.
Sure. Treasury.gov/cares, or that's for the CARES Act. And then when you get there, you'll see a list of rules and regulations, information for lenders, information for borrowers. So under the borrowers, second to last link there in that section, how to calculate your loan amount. So it's important that you go through there, see which one of those business types you are, so that you can do what is necessary to compile your documents. Now,
And that would also apply to S corporations with pass-through income?
yes, see.
Because
See, the
S
S Corp.
corporation with the 1099, that's actually one of the questions we received in the Q&A
Okay,
box.
so I'm not a CPA, and I'm super allergic to things that accountants think about, okay? I mean, I barely made it through accounting 101. When I say barely made it through accounting 101.
Well, trust me, when they start answering those questions, go see your CPA.
Exactly. Listen, I cannot get in the weeds with y'all on this stuff, okay? And this is why Matthew and Eric and I historically and religiously tell you, you've got to get professionals on your team. And so, but what I will say about the S Corp is, and I know exactly why you chose the S Corp formation for your business, because you didn't want to pay taxes or you wanted to mitigate your taxes. And I hear you on that, but just keep in mind that the PPP is funded by taxpayers, not tax mitigators and tax avoiders, okay? Taxpayers. So, you know, the S Corp's challenge is that oftentimes, because you run many expenses through your business, you mitigate your tax so much, but you want to stick your hand in the pot funded by taxpayers. And I don't think it's at all coincidental. And I find it terribly interesting that Treasury, the home of the Internal Revenue Service, is the lead, you know, sort of almost the lead agency on this stuff. And when you see how everything's shaking out, everything favors the business that pays employment taxes as you go along. In the S Corp, when the owner doesn't put themselves on, this is one example and then I'll move on. In the S Corp, when the owner doesn't put themselves on the payroll and pay their quarterly taxes for income, making those deposits quarterly, what they do is they take an owner's draw. Let's say you take an owner's draw in January of 2019. Right now, you don't even have to file your taxes for 2019 until July 15th. Chances are you'll ask for an extension. And I don't know when the extension would be, but under normal circumstances, if you don't want to file in April, you can get an extension to October. Well, let's just pretend that under the current situation, you wouldn't have to file until October. Well, the money you took from your business, your earnings in the draw from January, you will not have paid taxes on it for almost 2 years. Federal government does not like that. We want you to give us the money now so that we can do what we have to do with it as we go along. So, and in essence, when you don't experience any challenges or difficulties or interest or penalties, if you fess up in October that you owe the tax and you pay the tax. But the federal government, the Internal Revenue Service, has been robbed of its taxes for nearly 2 years. So I don't think it's coincidental that under the PPP, it is very hard for an S Corp who takes draws to get a PPP loan, but it's not impossible. But yeah, it's harder.
And again, to your point, I know you're not here and we're not here to get into weeds in terms of how one manages their taxes,
right?
Because that is really
a choice.
Yeah, it's a choice.
Absolutely.
But again, it's something that one should go to their accountant or CPA and determine how they should work through this minutia.
Oh my gosh, that's exactly what it is too. And I think part of it is why there's such challenge with some members of the small business community being able to really access this PPP. But what's the good news is that SBA has resource partners who are willing and able to assist you in pulling together your PPP loan application. I have found that the lenders at the smaller banks are willing to work with borrowers to help them with their PPP loan calculations, but it is incumbent upon the borrower to do those calculations. And that webinar I was just on before this one, talking about loan forgiveness, there's a big burden on the borrower to establish not only and sort of really verify their eligibility for PPP in the first place in order to get the forgiveness. So, and of course, we're going to reserve the right to check back on these loans at any given time. And when you apply for forgiveness, you, the borrower, and the lender must maintain those records for 6 years on this loan. So, and it will not be a defense that you got rid of those documents. So, you know, it's involved. And I say that to say that, look, if you want to borrow under this program, great. I say go for it. And I really mean it. Go for it. But you really do need to appreciate that you can't continue doing things the way you used to. I mean, put it that way.
So, Ms. Harris, one of the things that a lot of borrowers see this PPP as an opportunity to cover their payroll expenses. And you have many business owners who they're their only employee, they're doing this themselves. Can this be used for them to cover their costs and use a little bit of income they have to apply to other things and get that forgiven? Okay,
well, let's just review PPP really quickly. The Paycheck Protection Program loan is only for the use of payroll, to make payroll and its associated costs. When you get a PPP loan, at least 75% of the loan must be used for payroll. More of it can be used for payroll, but not less than 75% must be used for payroll in order to get forgiveness. You can use 25% of the loan proceeds to pay for only 3 things: utility payments, rent lease payments, mortgage interest payments. Now, with those 3 categories, you must have had the obligation to make those payments before February 15th. So if you had a telephone bill before February, you can pay it with PPP today. If you have a lease that you signed before February, you can use PPP for that. But you cannot use the PPP money for anything else. If you need money for anything else for your working capital needs in your business, then you need to be considering the Small Business Administration's Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program.
Let me ask you this question before you go there. I thought, or I should ask the question like this: doesn't PPP also cover 401k payments and health insurance?
Health insurance premiums, yes.
That's a part of that 75% though, correct?
Correct. That's correct.
Is that also the SEP IRA portion?
You know what? You can find out. Let me just, here, hold on. Let me just run over here to my.
We're saying
that 75% has to cover payroll. And most people would think of payroll as that check that I'm writing to my employees. But within that 75%, 401k can be paid, as well as health insurance. And what?
Yes.
IRA.
Yeah. Retirement benefits. What I'm trying to do is find the document that tells you exactly what is covered in payroll costs, because there are many that are covered in that, and I like to read it because it's really important that you get it right. So yeah. Anyway, but I'll be looking. Here it is. Okay, here it is. I found it. Sorry, give me 1 second, and if you want, I will pop this. Oh, I thought this was okay, here.
Put it in the chat, put the link in the chat.
I thought I was opening the location on the web, but what I'm opening is the PDF that I have. And if you want, I can send it to you, and you can send it to everyone else. or I will also look for it in the chat. Okay. I mean, in my,
Yeah.
okay, what counts as payroll costs? Payroll costs include salary, wages, commissions, or tips capped at $100,000 on an annualized basis for each employee. Here's what we're talking about. Employee benefits, including costs for vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave.
Okay.
Allowance for separation or dismissal. Payments required for the provisions of group health care benefits, including insurance premiums, and payment of any retirement benefit. Okay, now when you go to the Treasury website, there's ample information there to help understand some of those nuances, and where all of that is in the FAQs under program rules. It's the first one, and I see that it was updated today. So that changes as, remember I told you implementation is the challenge. So that got updated today because something got added to the end. So, you know, it's really important to read this stuff, or, you know, if you don't really want to read it, which, you know, is completely understandable. You know, I mean, I don't even want to read it, but I know that it's important. Okay, so the last question that got updated answers something for the lenders. But, you know, there's ample information out there about all of this. We, in our office, we host 5 webinars every single day from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. To address people's questions. So, you know, you can come on and get a cursory understanding of PPP and start asking questions to make sure you understand it so you can move forward. Now, what I was going to say earlier is, please do access our resource partners, SCORE, the Small Business Development Centers, the Women's Business Centers. Under the CARES Act, the Small Business Development Centers and the Women's Business Centers received funding to help small businesses with COVID recovery, part of which is being able to apply for these loans. The other thing that is interesting for your listeners to know is that the CARES Act also provided money to states and municipalities. So I've heard from several counties or cities where they're all developing grant programs to, you know, get money out to small businesses who have either gotten no money, gotten some money, but it's insufficient to really meet their needs.
From what I understand, Miami-Dade County received $475 million. Broward received somewhere upwards of $375 to $400 million. Palm Beach around $300 million. And so, yes, there are conversations being had about what the county is doing with these dollars. One question that some of our listeners is asking in terms of the 8 weeks.
Yes.
Can you give a clarification on how that 8 weeks comes into play? And I know there's been talk about extending that 8 weeks because, again, where you go back to the point of, okay, I'm trying to open my business, but the reality is I don't have any business. So I can really maybe bring back one employee. I'm not able to bring back all my employees, or I'm not able to bring any employees back. I got to run the business myself. But that 8 weeks starts when I get the money.
Correct.
So
that's correct.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So what's interesting is, we'll go back to what you said in the beginning, is that when the CARES Act was passed, it was really about keeping money in the hands of employees, right?
Correct.
And there was really no real concern about whether or not people were working for the money.
Right. That was never the intent.
That wasn't really like the thing. And I know that there are people who, you know, obviously would object to that, right? Wait, I'm just supposed to give you the money? You know, so, and I think that that's just, I mean, to a business owner, I think that's probably for them very strange. But at the same time, what I heard in the first month, 2 months of PPP, you know, this great concern by employers for their employees. So that you're right, the Congress is entertaining legislation to extend the use of PPP funds. I saw a news clip where the restaurant crowd were in the White House talking to the president, and he was asking for an extension of time to use the PPP money to pay people. Because if you think about it, right, and you're a restaurant and you've been shut down since, you know, late March, right, or even maybe sooner, and you got PPP money, out of PPP 1, you're almost out of money.
Correct.
And you're only now opening.
Exactly.
And so, wait, I coulda, shoulda waited 5 weeks to give, you know, to utilize this money so that I, the small business owner, too, would benefit.
Well,
and
when
so,
you think about it,
mm-hmm.
when you think about it, Althea, local governments weren't letting you open your business.
Right. Exactly.
So
exactly.
like this week is in city of Miami. As a matter of fact, today, I
right.
think the first day for restaurants. So if
Correct.
you applied, to your point, and you got it 3 weeks ago, you burnt through 3 weeks and you haven't been open.
And you, the business owner, didn't receive the benefit. Your employees did if you paid them, you know, and right. I'm sure they're grateful for that, to be honest with you. And I know that made the difference for many people, of course. But there's so the gentleman from the restaurant group, you know, was asking for 30 weeks. And if I do my math right, that's about to the end of the year. So there are lots of challenges, as I mentioned, with the implementation of PPP, with the implementation of the EIDL loan advance, all of that implementation and the challenges that we are seeing now really do come from the haste, right? The urgency of passing the legislation and wanting to provide relief to the American people. And I guess, you know, you can't fault them for that, can you? You know, and so that's why, you know, these interim final rules keep coming out to try and clarify and provide some information. Now, look, I want to answer a question though about the 8 weeks. Now, the 8 weeks is one of the things that is, you know, we get a lot of questions about, and it's just not clear, right? So let's say you got your money today on Wednesday from PPP, and you normally run payroll on this coming Friday. But basically your people have, earned that money, have accrued the earnings, right, over the last 2 weeks. Can you use the PPP money that you got on Wednesday to make payroll on Friday? And there is no clarity on that answer. I even asked that question myself of the expert this afternoon, and nobody wants to commit, right, an answer to that. So that basically, we now know, because of the loan forgiveness application, that and all of the language that went before, that PPP money is to be utilized for payroll going forward 8 weeks. So the general consensus is that no, if you got money today, you could not pay your people on Friday for the 2 weeks prior of payroll. But what you can do is you can start your 8 weeks with the next pay period cycle. So on whatever Sunday, you could start your period then, and it's called the alternative covered period, so that you can go forward from, like, say, Sunday instead of today, Wednesday. So it's really
there's a question when hiring a third-party payment provider. Can it be a platform like QuickBooks, Intuit, etc.?
What was the front part? I didn't hear.
When hiring a third-party payment provider.
What about them?
Can it be a platform like QuickBooks or Intuit?
And you mean they generate payroll for you?
Right, I guess.
Oh yeah, like ADP. Oh yeah, that's great. That's a push of the button and you've got everything you need right there. Absolutely. That's ideal, even, you know, if you can do that.
And I know
Ms. Harris,
you
is there
answered the
any
IRA.
discussion about changing that portion of it has to be used moving forward instead of backwards? Because let's just, so you do, oh, okay.
I don't think so. I mean, listen, PPP has been out there. If you were a recipient of the first PPP money on the 3rd of, you applied on the 3rd of April, which was the first day, you're running up on your 8 weeks now, roughly, so if we haven't changed it yet, now they may come up with clarity, but what part of the discussion in the webinar I was just on with the experts was that, the rules in effect when you got your money are the rules that bind you.
So I know one thing that, we have engaged with Senator Rubio, and one of the questions, and I understand it actually came out last Friday in the newspaper, that he, along with some other senators, are looking at the 5-year look back with felons. Because if you're a felon, you can't apply for SBA loans. You don't qualify with that 5-year look back. So,
well, one little clarification on that. You can get SBA money, but you as a former person who is formerly incarcerated, but you have to go through some extra hoops. And I don't know that we have time for that. So it could be, right, because the urgency of the hour is now. I don't know that anyone in particular is looking at, that carve out for those folks.
Right. Well, I know that, again, that Senator Rubio, there's an article that came out in Miami Herald last Friday that said they're trying to either remove that or reduce it, because right now it's a 5-year look back. So they're trying to reduce it to 2 to 3 years, or totally remove it so that that impediment isn't there. And I don't know, about a month or two ago, there was one of the news reporters on the president's daily
briefing.
Briefing, that brought up that particular question. He said he had run into a business person that was a felon, and had a business but employed 50 individuals but couldn't apply for the PPP. The orange man's response was, "Is he a friend of yours?" And rather than, send him to me. Is he a friend? And the reporter said, "No, it's just someone that I spoke to." But anyway, it's a big deal, and I think it's something we really need to fix.
Yeah, well,
Because
okay.
again, people have served their time. They paid their dues to society. They've come out. A lot of them can't get in particular jobs because of their past transgressions, and so they've started their own businesses.
Right. And they've created their own jobs. I mean, it's great stuff.
Employing, I'm sure there are those who, like this one particular person, employs 50 individuals. Those 50 individuals hadn't created or committed any crimes per se, but they're being penalized because of this one law. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the listeners, that is something that Senator Rubio is currently looking at, along with other senators, to have that law changed, the time reduced or totally removed.
Right. Well, there are additional impediments that will, harm you in your pursuit of federal funds, right, or federally guaranteed funds in SBA's guarantee program. But under the loan guarantee program, you can get over that hurdle there's a form, I don't remember the number on it, but where, it goes up. Somebody reviews it. Now, I will tell you that in general, in the law, folks, a person who has killed another person,
I'm sure there's
is better off than a person who has committed a white collar crime.
Wow.
Because the white collar crimes, fraud, embezzlement, all of those are trust related
Right.
crimes. But you know, taking the life of another is something altogether different, right? And so, for example, not that it's exactly like that, and I really feel bad about what I'm about to say, but you know, folks, if you're behind on your child support payments, that's a deal breaker.
Right.
To getting an SBA disaster loan.
Right. And I know, to your point, there are certain circumstances, regardless of what loan you're trying to get. If you had, like I said, child support and other areas that may be covered, you're not going to get SBA loan. You're not going to get PPP. But again, for those who don't fall under those,
which are the vast majority of people, I hope, who are listening today. So,
right.
you know, staying on track, you know, if you're interested in a PPP, it's important that you get on top of it, because before you know it, the time will run out. Now, the unfortunate situation right now for a person who is a business owner and would have, or a nonprofit who would have liked to receive an SBA economic injury disaster loan, that program portal is closed for new applications. We have been working really hard to process the loans that we do have in the queue. You know, people know they're in the queue. SBA, as of I think this week or maybe last week, we had done 500,000 loans in the SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program for $42 billion. And I'm happy to say that Florida is number 2 in the nation. That's for recipients of the EIDL loan, $3 billion, and got there with over 37,000, almost 38,000 loans. So a lot of those people also may have gotten the loan advance that the CARES Act provided for. We have done over 3 million loan applications for the loan advance, and have gotten over 10 billion with a B out to business owners. And that was a Herculean effort.
Can you explain the EIDL again to people? Because I know a lot of them, we've had several of our members who apply and have received the EIDL. And so my understanding again is that you don't start paying until after 12 months.
Yep.
And you have 30 years to pay that.
Right.
And 30 years, 12 months, and it's what, 2.5%? What's the?
It's 3.75% for businesses, 2.75% for nonprofits, and it's simple interest. It is not designed like your mortgage or your student loan debt to, you know, hang on forever, and
right.
and where your balance never goes down. So it's the SBA's Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. And like I said before, it's been around for decades. It's been very helpful. Particularly, it's better known in the disaster context of natural disasters, right? And especially for us here in South Florida, who are exposed to hurricanes, hurricane force winds, rain, flooding, etc. But the EIDL loan program is just one of SBA's disaster loan programs. And of course, it was rolled out for the pandemic. And we've been doing gangbusters. Again, you know, it's taken us this long to do 500,000 loans because the CARES Act, very well intentioned, but in the implementation of I forget how much it was now, maybe at least 10 billion in the loan advance, the Congress wrote into the legislation that we, a very small agency with limited numbers of employees, would, within 3 days of your application, give you $10,000. How are we going to turn around 5 million applications in 3 days?
And
that's not possible.
Go ahead, finish your thought.
Well, and just very quickly, and this is taxpayer money. We cannot just send that money out the door like we didn't, you know, aren't paying attention.
Right. So the other thing about there was some misunderstanding about that $10,000, or there was a change as the horse crossed the bridge. Initially, it was thought that it was $10,000 per business, and then it got switched up to up to $10,000, $1,000 per employee.
Right.
So I want you to touch that lightly. We're actually coming to the 5 o'clock hour.
Yeah,
already?
Questions too.
Yeah, but what other thing we talked about the EIDL paying it back, but the PPP, if you don't do the payroll piece and taking care of your employees,
right,
it is a loan.
Yes.
And you have to pay it back, but I understand you have to pay it back within 2 years.
2 years, 1%. But here's the thing, Eric, that worries me about PPP. Because when I say, if you don't use it the way we say you're supposed to use it, right? So a person diverts funds, because even if they say it innocently, well, I'm a restaurant and I don't have employees because I can't open. And so what they do is they pay their rent or whatever, and they don't use the money, or they go take it and pay off their car or go on vacation. Well, where they would go, I don't know. But the thing is, with the PPP, when you sign for that loan, even though there are no personal guarantees, no collateral required, the problem is when you sign for that loan, you initial and say, all these things are true, that I need the money, that I'm going to use the money this way, I'm going to use the money that way. And if the government decides that you signed those papers and took that money and did wrong with it, you're going to go broke, even just trying to prove yourself innocent. And we have reserved the right to look at your loan anytime we want. We have reserved the right to put you in jail if we decide that you are a fraudster. And we have reserved the right to come after you for civil penalty. So take the money if you need it, and you're going to make payroll payments at 75%, okay? And if you can do, or more, and you have rent that you can meet, you can meet the obligations, because you're not going to be able to say, I didn't know. Right. You signed everywhere.
So there's actually
another question before you
one of the questions that I had. As someone put in the chat, can a business that has closed due to COVID-19 still apply for a PPP?
Well, so when you say closed, do you mean never to rise again?
Operational.
Or just not operate? You know what I'm saying? Because the restaurants are closed.
No longer operational.
Well, what would you propose to, what payroll then are you going to meet? You see, that's the kind of thing. If you're not there, you don't have employees, you don't have employees, and you're not going to, how can you pay employees? Then I would say, if attention is turned to you, you're going to have a hard time. One, in order to get that loan forgiven, you have to get through a banker who's going to send your stuff, documentation. I found out today what all the documentation is. So if you can't provide documentation, then you're going to have a hard road to till and eat. And so let's say you say, you know what, never mind, I'm not even going to try for forgiveness. I'll just pay that note over 2 years. Okay, that sounds good, I guess. Depending on the size of your loan, you may or may not be able to do that, depending on the whether you have a source of income. And again, if you kind of go in with that intention, there is an argument that could be made that you fraudulently took the money. So I would be very careful before I took any government money to make sure that, I'm in the right place and space to, really be able to get that forgiveness, because you really want to minimize the number of questions being asked of you.
Another question that I see on Facebook. Hold on, Matt. There's one question I see. Are there parameters for the type of business operating expenses the loan can be used for? And obviously, are there parameters for the type of business operating expenses that the loan can be used for?
So I'm based on the question, I'm going to assume you mean the economic injury disaster loan, because PPP, we've already articulated what you can use it for. period. Okay, it's payroll and associated costs. It's rent, lease payments, mortgage interest payments on business property, or utility payments, all of which you had to have had the obligation to pay before February 15th. So with the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, it is an awesome program, I think, because it is the cheapest money you're going to get for working capital, and it's long-term capital. So you don't have to pay that back, you know, for 30 years potentially. So that's the cheapest money you'll find. It has broad uses. You get to use it for your normal monthly expenses you would have normally paid, but you can't because of the disaster. So you can use it for payroll. If you decide to never get a PPP, you could use it for payroll. You can use it to pay your rent. You can use it to pay your inventory, vendors, marketing campaign, the things you would ordinarily be paying. So it has far more uses than PPP, though it is a loan and there's no element of forgiveness. There is no not paying it back. You must pay it back.
Okay.
So just as we close out in summary, could you go through just some of the basics that businesses need to have in place and be ready to provide when they apply to the PPP?
Right. Your basics are going to be your payroll costs, an articulation of them. And even if you are a sole proprietor, you pay yourself, you've got to have those documents that support that you pay yourself from your business. And I assume one of the easiest ways you would do that is you would go to your bank statements, right? Showing the inflows and outflows from your business to you as a owner and owner payee of payroll. You're going to in the loan forgiveness portion, you're going to have that same kind of documentation showing how you use the PPP money. If you use the 25% of the PPP money for your rent, you're going to have to show your obligation, so your lease, invoices that show that you had to pay rent at X amount for every month. All these things that demonstrate, nobody's taking your word for it. And that should, be understood. In fact, I heard more than one lender talk about how, and borrowers say, I've been friends with this banker for 20 years. They know me. Doesn't matter. Nobody's taking your word for it on PPP. You have to show that you have an obligation for rent. Show that you have an obligation for payroll and what those dollar amounts are. And then you have to be able to do some simple math, right? To add up all your payroll costs from 2019, divide by 12, then multiply by 2.5. That is the maximum loan amount of the PPP you can get. And remember, there's still almost $100 billion left. Your key, after you pull together your documents and your figures, is finding a lender who can do your loan. I would dare say most of the large financial institutions are finished with PPP 1 and 2. So you've got to find smaller banks that may be members of the chamber and who've been trying to get your attention for all these years at all the cocktail events and the, back when we were out together, all those events that at the gala and the, what have you events, those lenders, yeah, you might want to go look for them now and show them some love so they can do your loan. Or the CDFIs. I believe the Opelika CDC was doing loans under the PPP. Accion was doing loans under PPP. Some even our micro lenders, Prospera, BBIF. So depending on your loan amounts, you might want to really hone in on some of the smaller lenders. And if you go to, if you just Google PPP lenders, you'll get to either the Treasury site, or I think they're actually on our website, the list of lenders who were doing PPP. I would just ignore all the big banks because I don't think they have any money left.
Two quick ones. Got a question. If you received awarded the PPP and decided that you didn't need the total amount that was awarded, could you take a smaller amount?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And this is very tricky because, I don't really want to give you advice because it's hard because, so many details are still yet to be worked out. But if you know, for example, because remember the calculation is times 2.5, the 2 equals the 2 months of payroll. If you know you don't have any lease payments or utility payments that you can pay, don't take the 0.5 portion of the loan up front, right? Because then you don't have to worry about math I don't really know how to do, where your payroll doesn't add up to 75% of the 2.5. Right. So you don't have to worry about that. On the other hand, maybe you want to take that money and know going in that your loan forgiveness will be reduced if you can't get over that 75% threshold. And what I understood from our training that webinar was on today is that the reduction in the loan forgiveness is proportional to the percentage by which you missed the targets.
Okay.
So that might be a workable number for you, depending on the size of your loan and the size of that percentage.
So before Matthew closes us out, one other question I have. I know they're talking about COVID. We had the first tranche of money, then we had the second round of money, which $98 billion, close to $100 billion is still sitting there. I understand there may be a third, fourth, and a fifth round. What do you see the future in terms of monies coming out?
Well, it's interesting. I really don't follow, believe it or not, I really don't follow the news because I'm on webinars all day, every day at home with 4 children. And so, when the day is over for me, I shift and I go be mommy, right? And make dinner and discipline, and then I fall out in my bed. So I'm not really up, honestly, on what's happening. But I have to wonder, if we have $100 billion sitting there, I'm not sure that's an argument that we need more money.
Well, in the conversation,
but here's the thing.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, Eric. If the people who need PPP and have never gotten PPP don't apply and get PPP, there's an argument to be made for first round people to get more money.
Yeah.
And now how's that going to shake out?
Right. Well, the reason I even bring it up, because in the conversation with Senator Rubio, that's part of the conversation, that there will be a third round and possibly a fourth before the year is over. So I guess the anecdote there is, as Matthew said, and you have said, that you need to get the back of your house together. And here's time if you haven't pulled it together. We're saying this is going to be over the end of June, so you got 4 weeks to pull your payroll together and pull all those documents that you need, that you haven't pulled together, that you have stuck in a box under the bed or wherever you have them stuck.
Right.
If you haven't done your taxes, it's a time. So you got a couple weeks to do that. So from my point.
One thing,
yes,
I was remiss in mentioning, because when we talk about payroll costs,
yes,
it's important. One of the payroll costs that are not included in PPP is the employer's contribution of tax to the employees, right? If you're a W-2 wage earner,
so repeat that again. Repeat that.
Okay. Okay. Remember now, when you, or maybe you don't know, because a lot of times we don't know stuff that doesn't affect us, right?
Yep.
If you're a wage-2 earner, right? So you get a W-2 at the end of the year, or W-2 at the end of the year, and your employer has taken taxes out of your paycheck.
Right.
The employer also has to pay towards your income tax
Right.
bill, so to speak.
Right.
Okay. You, the employer, cannot use PPP money to make your income tax
okay.
contribution to
Okay.
payroll.
That's a good
You
point.
got to find that money elsewhere.
Wow.
That's
a good
important.
point.
Yes.
I'm sure a lot of people don't know about that one.
Yeah.
Right.
Big deal.
That's right. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. But yeah, please, folks, you know, if you need PPP money, do apply for it. It's there for you. But again, I would urge you to strategize about it, right? Because you do have a little time left. You might want to, for sure, pull everything together, begin working with a lender, but maybe you want to try to time it a little bit visa, you know, while we wait for an understanding of will these 8 weeks be extended, you know, because if it is, you're like in the catbird seat, right? Waiting for your business to reopen. You're going to be the best positioned, as it turns out. You know, you're not actually Johnny come lately to it. You're just perfectly timed. But at the same time, you know, you don't want to mess up your opportunity to get PPP money if you need it.
So I
and
know,
get help with it.
Again, this has been awesome. Like I said, hours
so
gone by. We're 15 minutes after 5. And I want to thank everybody that's on Zoom, and we got quite a few. I see Uncle Luke is even on on Facebook. So Luke, thank you for joining us. I know you are a businessman, and your wife is a businesswoman. So hopefully you picked up some information, all of you who are on, Sandra Enriquez, Michael Butler, members of the chamber. We really appreciate you all joining us today. And I know Matt's going to give you some information that we have of some upcoming things and some money that is out there.
So again, I want to again thank you, Ms. Harris, for joining us again and providing that information. You've always been a value to our community and making sure we understand the latest information coming from the federal government and the SBA. So really appreciate you taking the time to join us second time during this COVID-19. And also to our president, Eric Knowles, really facilitating and creating this platform for us to be able to be there for our businesses. So I wanted to just quickly go through a few items that I think some business owners need to know in terms of the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce. We do these technical assistance workshops on a regular basis. So if you go to our Miami-Dade, our m-dcc.org website, you can find the latest information about our upcoming events. Follow us on Facebook so that you know the things coming up. And continue to really engage us. We have insight into quite a few opportunities. So for example, right now, Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce, actually Miami-Dade County has put out funding for business owners that cannot take advantage of the PPP. So for business owners who have not been able to get funding from the PPP, they have a small business assistance forgivable loan up to $25,000 at 0% interest rates. And these are for small businesses in Miami-Dade County. If you keep your people on payroll during this COVID-19 crisis for at least 12 months, that loan will be forgiven. So I strongly encourage you to look up Tools for Change, go to their website and look at their small business forgivable loan, because that's an opportunity that you can take advantage of if you cannot find the funding from the SBA through the PPP. The Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce also has 2 tiers of loans for small businesses, going from one from 5 to 10,000, another from 10 to 25,000. And we actually cut our interest rate in half due to COVID-19. And, always reach out to us. This is a program that's been in existence since before COVID-19, and we're currently doing this program. So if you want to find out, you can always reach out to us because one of the things we do with our program is that we provide one-on-one technical assistance for small businesses. That is the value of the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce and what we do. We will get down in the nitty-gritty to help you with cash flow projections, business planning, and also set your business up so you can take advantage of government contracts. That's our specialty with our partners at Miami-Dade County, Jackson Health, Miami-Dade Public Schools. We work with business owners to ensure that they have everything they have, like the fundamentals of their business is in play so that they can take advantage of funding opportunities and government contracts. And that's what our one-on-one technical assistance program is about. As a part of that technical assistance, as I said, we continue to do workshops. Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., we have Dr. Delvina Thomas, who's a board certified psychiatrist, who will be with us tomorrow to talk about mental health strategies for business owners. I know that many of us have been going through with COVID-19, national news, things that are going on as really homeschooling kids. Has a lot of stress going on. And we wanted to make sure that we don't forget our mental, physical, and spiritual health. So Dr. Thomas is going to come in and talk about that mental health strategy. So please continue to reach out to the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce. If you want to learn more about our microloan program, technical assistance, I'm here and I'm available for you. So I want to just thank you very much for joining us and being with us today. Please make sure you like the Facebook, share this website, share this Facebook Live with other business owners who you know need this information. So let's do that. And I just want to turn it back over to everyone just to tell everybody goodbye.
Well, but wait, before you do that, can I say thank you so much for including me again? I really appreciate it so much.
Hey, you know what? I want to say this, and I'm being funny. Althea was so excited. She thought it was last Wednesday. She was.
Yes. Did I listen?
She was like, "Where is everybody? Where's everybody?" So she was here last Wednesday looking for us, but we're so happy to have you on. As I said, I want to give a couple of shout outs to those. I got a good buddy from all the way from Sanford, Florida, Don Levance, who's on watching. He's a businessman. He has Bit Technology. We got Michael Butler, who has EPAD Painting Company. He just bought a home up in Orlando, so he's back and forth. And my daughter Erica, she was on. Althea Harris and Luther Campbell. He even gave a shout out. He said thank you. He really enjoyed it. So really, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Kareen, Gloria, those, you know, we do, Jessica, we do this every day at 4 o'clock, actually. So we have our members come on and we just talk about what's going on, because we talk about this whole mental thing. And I always use this one, I call it my little antidote. We pass information. And I'm sure there are many of you who do not know that you can call your car insurance company and get your car insurance reduced. State Farm is reducing it by 25%, and the others. So just check with your car insurance company, because we're not driving as much.
Oh, that's a hot tip.
Oh, there you go.
That's a hot tip for Florida. Our insurance is so high.
It's crazy.
I am glad I was on with the chamber today. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. Hoping to see some of you all tomorrow at 10 a.m. to come on with Dr. Delvina and learn about how to deal with this new normal.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, everyone. Have a good day.
Y'all.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Take care. Bye now.
Bye-bye.